Good evening.
So Moses wants to know, is 8.6 Blackout a good rifle for self-defense?
Interesting. About a month ago, I was on the phone with Faxon trying to get one of their rifles from them. At the same time, I was trying to get some ammunition. I had contacted Tumble Impact, and they were going to send me some ammunition. I wasn't able to coordinate back with Faxon to get a rifle. So I've read about as much as you have. I have tried to get my hands on it. I just haven't had much luck with it yet. Hopefully, within the next few months, that might change. We may have one to look at in a few months. So, sorry I couldn't be more responsive to that, but I have been working on it.
Well, guys, thank you for joining us. If you have a question tonight, just put it into the chat line and try to stay in order as best as we can. We don't take just paid questions, but it does give you a guaranteed response, and it also bumps your question up to the top of all the questions coming in, and you'll get priority for the night. You can do that by using the Google Super Chat function, which is the $, or you can use our preferred method, which is DonorBox. That link is on smallarmsolutions.com. I'm also putting it into the chat line right here. Google takes 30% of your donation. DonorBox only takes 3%. So that's kind of our preferred. But either way, we are happy to have you. We're going to try to get through as many questions as possible. We did open it up for submissions earlier, and we have a few that came in. This is Kirk on DonorBox. Thank you, Kirk. He is wanting to get a new suppressor as a present for himself. He has his eye on a Surefire SOCOM RC3 for a 5.56. Do you think there's any other candidates I should consider, such as Yankee Hill Turbo, Dead Air Lazarus, your buddy Joe Mo at Atlas, if he has anything that's worth considering?
You know, one of the things about suppressors is you talk about ones that are better than the others. And I think when you go across the board, you won't find ones that are much better than the others. Some are better made, some aren't. The key right now to buying a suppressor is you want to go with something that is reverse flow. The new technology with reverse flow, the guns are operating better, they're operating cleaner, less gas in your face, a slower cyclic rate, it's less wear. Whatever you want to look at a reverse flow. And those cans are coming from many places. You have them coming from LMT. LMT's Orion is really, really good. You have Huxworks, which is very good. Silencer Co. has a reverse flow. You have many companies that have reverse flow, and to say that one is any better than the other, it's really hard. I have several suppressors. I have probably 5 or 6, 7 different manufacturers. Sig also makes an incredible reverse flow suppressor. So to sit here and say, this brand is better than the other is probably not the case. What I will be looking at would be a reverse flow can. I would pull up all those candidates there. Personally, I use LMT. Personally, I use Sig. And personally, I use Huxworks. I've used all 3 of those very, very, very extensively. I've been very, very happy with all of them.
Mark from DonorBox. Thank you, Mark. Any opinion on the PSA H&R M16 yet? I'd love to see a review.
Well, you will, because I just did one. That was the first gun that I shot on Monday. So we just did that video, so that's probably coming up over the next probably 5-6 weeks. It just depends on where it is in the queue. But yeah, you will have a video on that. Not only is it on that particular rifle, it's also on the history of H&R with the U.S. government.
Dustin on DonorBox. Thank you, Dustin. I was wondering if you ever considered doing a history of the AR-style DMRs.
I have thought about it, but there are some models that I just don't have access to. The basic models that I have for DMR is going to be the Mark 12. I don't have any of the other versions, the Marine Corps versions, or any of that kind of stuff. So it's something I thought about. I just don't have access to those. Those are not ones you can just call up somebody and say, "Hey, send me one for review." Those are ones that people actually build for themselves, and I haven't really built anything like that.
Just wanted to say it's truly amazing to have a resource like you available online, and I've learned a lot. What are your thoughts on the FN 15 M16A4?
It's certainly a good rifle. This is when you get down to your purist. Um, the FN, FN is a government contractor, but the rifle you're getting is not necessarily a government contract rifle. If you're looking for a closer to government contract rifle, you want to go with the Colt AR-15A4. Now, the AR-15A4 that Colt puts out is not a direct copy of the M16A4. When I reviewed one many years ago, when they first came out, I talked to Justin Baldini over there, and because when I got a hold of it, I says this is not an M16A4. It's got several changes. And he said the intent of it was to make it a direct copy of the M16A4. It was to make M16A4 ish, but it was going to have some of the updates, which it did. So, for instance, you're going to have a extended feed ramps on the upper receiver and on the barrel extension. The way things are right now, you may or you may not have an F-marked front sight base. They're not necessarily always marked. Your upper receiver may or may not be marked with the cage code. Again, if you're looking for a U.S. government gun, those are important. With your FN contract, you're talking there, you're not going to get any of those government codes. You're not going to get the FN on the upper receiver, or the FN on the bolt, or the FN on the carrier. You're not going to get any of that. With Colt, it's sort of hit and miss. Sometimes you'll get a rifle that will have 13629 on the upper receiver, and on the barrel you'll have these the C marked on the carrier, the CMP marked on the bolt. You may get all those parts, but if you really want to get more of the U.S. government, Colt is definitely the better way to go. But with the Colt, you're going to end up having to go out and buy the M5 RAS and whatever other features you're going to get. The FN probably is easier because it's a one-shop stop. Those M5 RASs aren't as good to find. Personally, by myself personally, I built mine off of the Colt. I wanted it more close to U.S. government.
Make sure to hit the like button, guys. Have you ever thought about doing an audiobook version of America's Rifle?
Guys, you guys hear how fast I talk? Unless I can get like James Earl Jones, he's gone.
I feel like it should be like an ASMR, like bedtime story. I feel like there'd be so many guys who are like, I'm going to put this on and go to bed at night.
Somebody with a far more soothing voice than me.
Well, people have literally said that they put videos on and it lulls them to sleep because it's something about your voice sometimes, I guess, that...
I get more complaints that I talk too fast. It's Italian curse.
Yeah, he talks really fast. There is a Kindle version, but yeah, not an audio. What is the second best AR-15 trigger on the market that isn't Geissele?
Depends on what you like. I prefer single stage triggers for combat rifles. I prefer double stage for DMR or precision rifles. My top, of course, is going to be Geissele for double action or double stage, and my number 2 will be Hyperfire. Without a doubt, it'll be the Hyperfire trigger for number 2.
If I can only have one enhanced BCG for AR-15, which would you choose?
Well, here's the thing: if you go with LMT, you're probably going to get the best enhanced bolt that's out there. That carrier is going to be designed specifically for generally a 14.5 or 16.5 inch version. It's optimized, so you may want to go with a different carrier and an LMT bolt. Now, another option you have right now, which is excellent, is the Centurion, his new enhanced bolt. He has enhanced configurations. You have material that's beefed up. You have better geometry to the locking lugs. You have dual ejectors. And you have, of course, I prefer chrome. He has the chrome carrier as well, the sand cutters. I wouldn't hesitate at all about buying an LMT, a Centurion Arms enhanced carrier with all that, the new bolt and everything. The only thing his does not have is that enhanced extractor, the lobster claw, the lobster tail extractor. That's the only thing his does not have, but he's basically improved everything else on it. So that is one. There's not a lot of real enhanced bolts out there. There's still relatively very few, and there's even carriers. You have some people who use different materials, but people who've actually addressed issues, such as Knights, basically did pretty much the same thing that Carl Lewis did. You have Reliabolts, which are somewhat enhanced with the locking lugs, but they don't really do anything for the extraction and ejection. The only ones who've really hit everything was the LMT one. He fixed the extraction, ejection. But Centurion is a very close number 2, and I think with Centurion you're going to have a lot easier time getting, and it's probably going to be a lot cheaper. So I definitely would be considering that one.
Is the NFA a good law to follow?
Say that again.
The NFA.
It's the only law to follow, unless you want to get a reserve of master suite in your local federal prison. You pretty much need to, unfortunately.
Is it true 10.5 ARs were faster than full-size ARs? Is it because they're all overgassed, or is there some inherent problem with short ARs?
No, it's a combination of the short barrel, short gas system, plus the short. Basically, you have the length of your barrel. You have carbine. You length of your carbine. You have the length of your gas system from your chamber to your gas block. Then from your gas port to the end of the muzzle is your distance. The distance from the gas port to the muzzle makes a very big difference also on how much you have to open up that gas port. So what's happening with those short barrels, those 10.5 inches, 11.5 inches, is because you have such a short distance between the gas block or gas port and the muzzle, you have to open up that even wider. So you're allowing more gas. You have the short carbine system, so you're increasing your cyclic rate, so that action is running extremely fast. And especially with the higher cyclic rate, you get more gas port erosion. That speeds it up even quicker. Those are the operating dynamics. You're nearly doubling your port pressures when you go to a carbine like gas system on an M4. Now try going down even shorter. So yes, inherently it's just because of the gas system. 14.5 inch barrel. If you go with the mid-length gas system, it's going to be a lot better than going with a carbine length system. Some comments prove that. You always want to go with the longest gas tube you can get, the longest operating system that you can get. You want to go with the maximum. Right now, Lewis Machine and Tools gotten rid of most of their carbine length gas systems. They've gone to mid-length, and he even does that with a 13-inch barrel, 12.5-inch barrel. He's using that as well. The only barrel he's got left that he's using carbine like that are the ones he uses for his Defender series, which are the standard government profiles. He's pretty much gotten rid of most of those. So that's what your key is. Yeah, your gas system, and your barrel length make a big difference in cyclic rate, which means wearing of parts, breakage of parts, and so forth.
LMT 12.5 internal piston or 12 external?
Depends what you want to do with it. If you're looking to suppress, you're always going to get a little bit of a benefit out of a external piston system. If you're not planning on suppressing, internal piston. They go either way. I've always been an internal piston fan. More I've used suppressors and the really short barrels. I tend to appreciate the external pistons a little bit more. But either way, I don't think you're going to go wrong either way. I will tell you that, not to my pleasure, but I have to be realistic. It appears as though that the industry is going more into the way on military guns into the external piston market. You're seeing more and more companies who are coming out with M16 based systems, especially out of Europe, and everything that they're doing now is external piston systems. No one's copying the internal piston any longer. And if you look at a lot of the guns that are being introduced now into military contracts are external piston. It seems like the direction is trying to move in that way. So there is potentially something to be said about that.
Your JFK series has divided some people faster than Trump. I'm amazed how some don't care about facts. They are emotionally invested. I don't have a question tonight. Keep up the good work.
That is the entire problem with all of this shit. All of it is that the facts are actually there. It can be proven scientifically, but the truth isn't exciting enough. There always has to be something else. And there's people out there who make up these conspiracy theories who have no experience. They have no, especially in forensics, they have no experience in forensic crime identification. They have no forensics in crime scene reconstruction. They don't know anything about rules of evidence. They don't know anything about forensic pathology or body anatomy. Yet these are the people who are throwing out things like, the Secret Service agent shot him with an AR-15. If you get some jackass like that out there who just all he has to do was throw out a accusation like that, he ruined a Secret Service guy's life, having to prove that it wasn't him when it was clearly not. It is frustrating for me because, again, knowing what I know, and there's absolutely no question in my mind, I know exactly what happened that day, and it was presented that way. But you will still have people who will argue. You will still have people say that he was shot from the grassy knoll in the front when it was physically impossible because of the condition of his brain. There's no way in any way whatsoever that he could have been shot from the front or from the side, judging by the wounds on his head, plus looking at the inside of the windshield and seeing the fragments of the inside of the car. It's impossible. But there are people who there's just no way you're going to convince them, and so I stopped. I presented the information, I gave you all the reasoning, and I guess what you take it with it is your own.
And if you've been a part of the channel for a while, you know that the crime series is near and dear to my heart and something that I kind of a labor of love that I started. And so wanting to do the JFK as kind of a special addition to that crime series, he fought me, and fought me some more. And after probably a couple years, finally did it. And then he fell so far down into the rabbit hole of it all that I don't think you guys really understand, like, even what goes into, producing a series like that, because, him having, direct knowledge of people that have worked on the case and talked to people who have seen everything, but then also, like, he researched everything, all the theories, read all the documentaries, the books. I mean, he explored every single theory, every possibility. So, I mean, I enjoyed filming it because I learned a lot myself. And
Well, when you ask questions, I want to be able to have answers. So I need you guys who are going to fire at me with this. I have this conspiracy theory. I'm going to say, no, that's bullshit, and this is why. And I'm going to tell you what's why.
Because he really explored all of them. I'm really stuck between buying the Sig Spear Light or the Bren 2. Can you shed some insight?
That is a hard one. Those are probably two of the more advanced rifles out there right now. The Bren 2, I can tell you from experience and also from knowing many people who are part of weapons replacement programs who are competing throughout the world. The Bren 2, you heard me say it, is probably one of the most feared guns that anybody goes up against. The Bren 2, durability, reliability, accuracy, they did it all. There's even a Bren 3 coming out now. It's already combat proven. It's been used in combat. It is an absolute excellent rifle. The Spear Light is not a combat proven rifle yet. It's none of the Spears are for as far as infantry type rifles. However, very, very well designed, very accurate, very reliable. They've got everything as well. I have both, and it's hard to say. I have a very slight nudge that's pushing me towards the Bren 2 because of just the fact that I know that it's more proven. The only benefit the Sig has over the Bren 2 is the trigger. The trigger on the Bren 2 is not nearly as good as the one on the Spear. If you go back to the CZ 805, the 805 trigger was better than all of them. Unfortunately, when CZ went with the Bren 2 over the 805, they didn't bring the trigger over with it. They changed it. So there's a slight edge just because of the fact I know that there's more of a combat it's been proven than the Spear Light has yet. But yeah, that is a tough one. I got a 14.5-inch SBR one, and I love it to death. It's just brutally reliable, accurate, anything you want out of it.
With all the new calibers coming out, do you think LMT will release something like a 338 ARC or a 277 Fury?
One of the things you had to know about Carl was what was that cartridge? The Valkyrie. 224 Valkyrie came out. Carl jumped on that, and it was a complete flop. That cartridge never went anywhere. So after that, Carl waits now. He'll sit and he will wait to see how well a cartridge actually does before he invests time and money into it. So I think before you will see anything, it will have to be proven. I do believe you'll probably see an ARC if he doesn't already have it. Then I do believe you're going to see very, very quickly. But these other cartridges, until they get some traction or get many manufacturers making ammunition, it becomes available. I don't think he's going to invest any more time or effort into something that's not developed yet.
Is the XM16E1 still your favorite AR?
Yeah, always has been. Something else that I would say too is I did a video on that H&R, and I talked a lot about the history of the M16A1s. I show some of the different ones. The retro series has shown that what's old is new again, and I think people are starting to appreciate going back to those original lightweight rifles, what they were supposed to be. You go from a 6-pound rifle to now you're looking at an M4 carbine that can weigh up to 10 pounds, and it's different. I don't know, there's just something really elegant about those original rifles that I really, really like.
I used your code for my Centurion rifle and I got a nice discount. Thank you. It's an amazing rifle.
glad that's still working for us.
Yes. So just to remind you guys, we do not know how long those codes will be active for. I just put them in the chat line. There are 3 separate codes. There is a code for 3% off complete rifles, 5% off uppers and lowers, and then 10% off everything else that's on there. So definitely go save yourself some money while you can, because we don't know how long those are going to be active for. Did you know that Sweden has bought 15,000 M4A1s?
No, I haven't heard that one. Yeah, that's a new one. We actually have a Colt guy in here. Brett's in here, so say hello to Brett. He's probably somebody who can answer some more of those Colt questions and more of what's going on here now today.
Is there any firearm that never got a chance to prove itself either to any military or a civilian market? For example, a Hudson 9.
Something like a Hudson 9 was never developed for military use. It was more of a commercial. I think there's guns out there that have potential. That they just have never been put in the military service. I think there's a lot of companies out there that want to make more commercial guns and not military guns. Most companies don't want to get involved in making military guns. If you're a company like Colt or something like that, what goes into making military guns is really a pain in the ass. You're opening yourself up to government inspectors, an entire amount of paperwork, and a QC system that is absolutely incredible. Where you have government deficiency reports, and you have all the stuff you have to do. It's a major undertaking. So I think a lot of companies don't. If you want to look at one of those rifles that probably should have had a chance was the Masada, or and of course the ACR got screwed up. Masada had all the potential in the world, and it went the wrong route. That rifle could have been a contender for the next U.S. military weapon. It certainly could have. If you look at Colt right now, they have several rifles in their inventory, not in their inventory, but in their engineering vaults, that if they would just release them, you would see, I think they would see incredible sales because of stuff that actually exists. There's a lot of good stuff out there that just never really gets mainstream.
If Colt CZ said, "Hey Chris, come back to work for us and you can take on any project you want to," would you go back, and what would your project be? I think he would go back. As long as he didn't have to live in Connecticut.
I think, for myself personally, if it was under new management, the environment changed from when I was there to people who were there to make this company successful again, and they wanted to rebuild it and they wanted to build that success. I probably would definitely consider becoming part of that and wanting to be part of bringing that company back, because again, that's been my life for my whole. It's all I ever wanted to do. I think one of the first things, oddly enough, would be one problem that Colt has that I would want to get on immediately was getting them a new handgun. The fact that Colt hasn't had a modern combat pistol since the 1911 to offer to any law enforcement or military. It would probably be to bring them into modern times and being able to offer a combat pistol that they could offer to modern day law enforcement military. The AR line, I think they need to start looking at newer modern weapons, something that's not necessarily based off of the AR design, something that's going to take them into that next generation. And I think, again, like I just had mentioned, somebody needs to go through those archive vaults and start pulling out some incredible guns like the CK901 and the IC and get those fuckers into production, because those are the rifles that would make them all kinds of money. Those are the guns that would make a potential for military sales that could compete with some of these other ones that are out there, rather than staying with the same thing. Colt is so concerned about making the same thing, mass producing it, rather than trying to get into making things that are new and getting those out there. If you really look at what's going on, you're going to see a video coming up that's going to, I think you guys are really going to enjoy. I finally got my hands on a CM901. I'm sorry, a M5, CM556, what it was. And what I did was I took that from the inception of the real early M5, which most of you have never heard of. There was an M5 around 2003. I take it from there to the type ABC scars. I talk about the ABC the first time we saw the one-piece upper receiver. Then I take that through the introduction of the LE 1020, and then into the LE 6940 to that release. And then we start going into the Armalite acquisition that never went through. And then General Key's putting down that I want a 7.62 that takes 5.56 you can convert. And then we get into the the CM901, the LE901, and then we go into the IC, which is the first time the 5.56 was put into the the ambidextrous was that lower receiver of the 901 was shortened down for the IC. Then from the IC is where the M5 comes from. So those are the most modern evolution of all of Colt's weapons right there. I probably put more in there with the external piston versions. So you're seeing some of the more of the production lines, but there are some of the things that you just don't see, like that that gas block that they had, which had the push pin, the cross bolt for suppressed and unsuppressed. Just some of those really incredible things that they have that they just haven't gotten out there, which I think would make them a lot of money. There's a lot of talent there. There's a lot of good stuff there. It's just not left out.
Paul, thank you for your donation on Donor Box. You didn't put a question in here, so I'm assuming you're just donating to the chat tonight, but thank you very much. The LMT Spec War in 12.5 inch, what would you say is the effective rate of this rifle using Black Hills and Sig Sauer 77 grain ammo? I'm trying to decide on optic setup.
I don't think that I would probably go 400 or 500 yards with that. It may do it, but with that short of a barrel, you're going to be losing a lot of velocity with it. The 12.5 inch is not designed for long range. It's a CQB rifle. And I would say as long as it's good with within 300 meters, I think that's what I would be concerned with for that. If you're looking to get longer range, you need a minimum of a 14.5 inch barrel on that. If you want to maximize it, you need an 18. A 16 is certainly a good compromise in getting the most maximum of terminal as well as accuracy. Again, that's what my gut would be telling me. I would never shoot a 12.5 inch at beyond 300 yards. In fact, I don't think I would probably do it beyond 200 for the most part. But I'm sure that it would do 300 without a problem. But beyond that, I think you're really stretching it.
Is there a major difference between Lancer Gen 1 and 2 Mags?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah, absolutely. The Lancer original L5 or L6, it's been a long time. They used just these tiny inserts in the feed lips, and they were basically molded into it. The Gen 2, which is the Advanced Warfighter magazine, you had the entire feed lips, where the entire thing was molded into it. It wasn't just the tabs. So yeah, there's a major enhancement. And they also made a more durable, floor plate and everything as well. That's something I actually probably should do. I have in my collection every iteration of the Lancer going back to the original green magazine that was done by Colt Canada. That was the first time this ever came about. It came out with a collaboration between Lancer and Damaco. Then of course, Colt screwed that up when they took over, and there was an issue. Lancer went on and said, we got a product here. They went forward. I have all the iterations going right up. I probably should do a video on that where you can actually see the history of the Lancer magazines. It's an idea for the next go.
Is $2,400 a good price for a 1968 Colt SP1?
It's a little higher on the higher end, but probably not too bad, not too much. If it's in really good condition, it's got some of the earlier features to it, probably would. For me, it wouldn't necessarily just be, I'd be looking at the serial number. I'd be looking at, does it have the smooth bolt carrier? Does it have the buttstock without the trap door? Does it not have, the codes on the carrying handle? Does it have the old gas tube? Does it have the barrel is just marked 12 instead of having, the chrome? I would be looking at more of those details rather than I would just a year. If it has some of those older parts on it like that, I'd probably be more apt to spend more money.
Can you go over why a very short-barreled AR-15 is hard on parts? And he said something about high pressure when unlocking, possibly.
We actually went over that earlier. Again, you have a shorter gas system, and basically what's happening is you're increasing almost double your port pressure. Those numbers are probably anywhere from like, let me see, 8,000 psi to 13,000 psi. I'm trying to remember it off the top of my head. I'm sorry, I can't do that. But it's double. So when you're increasing it double, you're increasing your unlocking speed. And when you're increasing your unlocking speed, your cartridge case is still operated. It's still up against. You have pressure in there that the extractor is trying to pull that out while that's still expanded into the chamber. That's making your extractor work harder, and it's lessening your reliability of your system. Under a normal situation with, say, a 20-inch barrel, for instance, when that fires, by the time that bolt is unlocking, that cartridge case is contracted and it's easily extracted. And it's much easier because, again, your system is slowed down. When you're speeding everything up, you're increasing your unlocking time, your extraction, you're increasing your ejection, your rate of fire is going up 100 plus rounds a minute. So anytime that you have that, your parts are wearing back and forth even harder. And as you get gas port erosion, you're allowing more gases into that rifle. That cyclic rate's going to speed up even more. And now some of you are going to add a suppressor to it with baffles on it. Now you're going to increase that port pressure up even longer, or even harder, or even higher to probably another, who knows, you probably another 100 to 200 rounds per minute potentially by having a suppressor on there. So you can potentially get that gun going so fast that the magazine's not going to be able to keep up with the speed of that bolt carrier group, and that's going to cause failures to feed. And there's other things that go along with that. But again, the shorter systems, the faster you drive those parts, the more work the parts are going to get. The more work they're going to get, the more they're going to wear out. And again, with with unlocking too soon, that's going to affect your reliability, your failures to extract. Eventually, if you get that that's too fast, your extractor's either going to break, or it's going to rip off the rim of the cartridge case, and you're going to have a serious malfunction. You have to have a rod that's going to knock out that cartridge case. So that's just one of the things that you get when you get those low, the smaller gas tubes. Again, we're talking more extreme situations. M4s do work just fine, but if you compare an M4 with a carbine line gas system to a mid-length gas system, it's a pretty good size difference as far as durability, reliability, and parts longevity. There's been tests that have been done on it.
Do you still think the carbine buffer and spring is the best for LMT rifles? That 2 o'clock ejection is annoying.
No. This is what happens with LMT. LMT has been forced to open their gas ports because the people who want to go out and spend $2,000 on one of Carl's rifles, or want to go out and buy the crappiest ammunition that's out there, that Wolf ammunition, which doesn't even have SAMI port pressures. So people are saying, well, these guns are garbage if they won't work with the cheapest ammunition out there. So what Carl has to do is open up the gas ports so it will work with that cheap ammunition. So what he has to do is he opens up that gas port, he puts a standard carbine weight buffer in there. Okay, so now it works with the cheap Wolf ammunition. Now you're going to put 5.56 ammunition in there. Now you're going to have a much higher pressure, so it's going to be working that much faster, and you're going to have failures to feed most of the time. You're going to have a very much higher rate of fire. So if you're using one of his rifles that has a commercial, basically gas port, you're going to end up having to take a buffer, usually either an H2 or an H2, and put it in that rifle to calm that back down to where it needs to be for use with that ammunition. That's one of the problems that, for instance, Colt never got into that mess. They stayed with government barrels and port pressures. And if you sent a gun back to Colt and said, my gun's not working, they're going to take it back in their range. They're going to grab a magazine of M855, put it in the gun. It's going to run great. And they're going to send it back to you and say it works fine. And then you're going to say, well, it doesn't work with Wolf. They're going to say this is a military weapon designed for military ammunition. A lot of these modern manufacturers didn't do that. They're catering not to the military, they're catering to the commercial market, and they try to make these guns work with that ammunition. So if you're having that 2 o'clock ejection, and I would start with an H and see how that works for you. H2, and I would not go beyond an H2. An H2 would be for more extreme, but an H2 will take care of that problem pretty quickly for you.
Love the channel, especially all the HK LMT videos. Is there any benefit to an LMT enhanced BCG on an external piston?
It won't work. The bolt carrier, you could use the bolt. That bolt will work in any 5.56 platform, anything. It's a reliability enhancement. That carrier is only going to work in an internal piston.
What are your thoughts on the PWS 6-arc rifle?
I don't have a lot of, again, PWS I know very, very well. Excellent rifles, 5.56, 7.62 with 300 blackout, excellent. The 6-arc, I have not done anything with because I haven't been able to get ammunition for it. I used to be able to get ammunition from Hornady. The guys who I worked with over the years disappeared, and I haven't been able to find anybody over there who will get it. The problem with 6-arc is it is a Hornady cartridge. There's nowhere else I can get it. And unfortunately, this channel does not make the kind of money where you can go out and spend $500 on a couple hundred rounds of ammunition to do testing, which is why you haven't seen me do more on the ARC because that ammunition is just unavailable to me.
What is the H3 buffer used for?
The H3 buffer, if you look at military guns, U.S. government guns, it is not used at all. The first time that Colt ever used an H3 buffer was on the infantry automatic rifle. Because what happened was, if you look at the SOCOM barrel, uses an H2 buffer. It has to because of that weight, because they basically have the bolt carrier will bounce off of the barrel extension because you just have that elasticity when it bounces, and that's sufficient to work with that weight barrel, that mass barrel. The barrel on the IAR, instead of it being a 14.5-inch heavy barrel, it's a 16-inch heavy barrel, and it's even a heavier profile than that. So you increase your mass that much further. So now you're having elasticity with the H2. So the H3 was put in, and that was used in the IAR. That is the only gun Colt has ever had, to my knowledge. And if Brent's still in here, he can chime in on that. That is the only gun that Colt has ever used an H3 buffer on. H3 buffers have not been used outside of military guns. What they're used for outside of military guns is to correct guns that aren't made properly. They're to correct overgassed guns, higher cyclic rates due to suppressors. They're used to basically doctor all these mismatched parts in improperly made guns. For military use, the TDP specifically calls for this barrel, this buffer, this barrel, this buffer. It specifically calls for that. Now, what can happen in some occasions, for instance, with an M4, say you have an M4 that's got quite a bit of gas port erosion on it, and you're getting a higher cyclic rate, and you may be experiencing some bolt carrier bounce, but you're still got a good barrel, still shooting well, they could possibly drop an H2 in there, and it might take care of that. So it could doctor some extreme problems, but I've not seen any documentation, and I've written manuals for Colt where we ever recommended them doing that. It's not saying that couldn't be done to correct some of these bad guns, but it could. But military use is very specific. H3s are used commercially, again, for a totally different use.
Why did SCAR win over Robinson XCR?
Robinson never got to compete. Robinson, when they submitted the final submission of the guns, they were missing blank firing adapters. And SOCOM was not forgiving. The gun wasn't ready. It was rejected. Believe it or not, that gun was not tested because when it was delivered, it did not have blank firing adapters with it. So it never actually competed. The only guns that were to compete and actually make it to the finalist was the SCAR and was the FN version of the SCAR and the Colt Type C. And many people who are part of that will tell you that the true winner was the Colt Type C. There was politics that was involved with the winning of the FN within the SOCOM community. Primarily was because they didn't want the SEALs to think they were getting a new weapon, and it felt like what they already had. And they had this really wild thought that gun had more ability to grow and to advance than that other one did, which we've all seen what happened with that. The SCAR that's stuck from 2006. Nothing's been done with it. I then gave up on it after 2006. So for as far as it being able to grow and become modular, which they originally thought, that never happened. But now look at the Type C SCAR, the I6940P, and look where that's at for as far as is continuing to evolve, different calibers, different everything. So I guess that was some flawed thinking on part of SOCOM at that point.
What do you think of the URGI program for the USA SOS implemented? Is it a good upgrade?
The URGI, I just got my first one from Geissele. It's the short barrel. I'm waiting to get the one for the 14.5. The URGI came out of several. There were several improvements that came out of that. The first one was, you've heard me talk multiple times about carbine length versus mid-length gas systems. A report came out from Crane that they did a direct study on the effects of carbine length versus mid-length gas systems. Showed that it was across the board better in every aspect. So when the URGI was spec'd out, it was spec'd out for a mid-length gas system. So the barrel was basically a Colt barrel. It was a Colt government barrel, oddly enough. I would have expected it would have been a SOCOM barrel, but it wasn't. The URGI actually used a Colt M4 regular type government profile barrel with a mid-length gas system on it. Surefire war comp. I believe it was a war comp. I'm not sure. One of them, and it used the updated M-lock heavy Geissele handguard. So yes, if you compare that to the M4A1, yeah, they did a good job with the gas system, but they did a bad thing for as far as not going with the SOCOM heavy barrel. The heavy barrel was there for a reason. So I do believe there was a flaw in that. For as far as the short barrel was concerned, I do believe it was certainly an upgrade over the standard Mark 18. The URGI program was a success for the most part. I just felt that their logic with going with the government profile barrel was it went counter to the reason why we switched to the SOCOM barrel to begin with, the heavy barrel SOCOM. That's sort of my take on that. But you will be seeing some videos. I'm wanting to get my hands on one of the 14.5 inch. I want to do both of them at once.
Well, I guess now is a good time to go into what they can expect from the channel coming up.
Well, we had filmed quite a bit recently. Starting off, we had the H&R M16A1. Then we went with the Springfield Armory SA16A2, the M16A2 version. We had something really cool, which was the Desert Tech Quattro D53 lower receiver with 53 round magazine, which is pretty cool. We got one of these. We got one of the Hellion 20 inch, which is basically the VHS that was used by the Croatian military. We got one of those. We got the new Springfield Echelon compact pistol, a CZ Shadow compact, the Colt M9, and the Brigade Makasi rifle, sort of a AR FN FAL type hybrid. We have the new Magpul T-Mag. We have a video. I sort of have a little bit of history of the Magpul magazines with that one. I keep thinking I'm missing something. Oh, and one of you guys left in one of your comments, you wanted to get the history of the Colt AR-15A2 government carbine. Well, I happen to have one of those in my collection, and I had the guns that predated that. So we went into a pretty good length video going over the history of Colt's longest serving commercial LE type rifle. The AR-15A2 government carbine was in production from 1988 to 2011. I think the only one that's going to start to beat that now is the LE6920. So those are the ones you got coming up right now. There's like nine or 10 of them that we've got done over the last.
No, it was more than that.
Was it?
Yeah, it was 11.
I'm definitely missing something.
The Colt one is the one that's going up this weekend, right?
Yeah, for the first one going up is going to be that one. One of the next ones I really want to get out was the Springfield Echelon. That one we were sort of fortunate that we were one of the people who got that before they released it. Unfortunately, I wasn't in Texas when that date came to release that, so I'm probably a week or two late on getting that one out. Very impressive pistol. Yeah, I know there's something else. We talked about some new ammunition. I had a friend of mine who imported I don't know 1.6 or 1.8 million rounds of SS109 made in Oman, Oman munitions of plant, and they wanted me to take a look at it to see what I thought about it. So they sent me an ammo can, and I burned through all 800 rounds of it. And I have to say, I was very pleased with it. It was excellent. It all fell with the mil specs. I tried it in 3 different barrel lengths. So we had a chance to take a look at some new ammunition that's sort of newer into the country. I did have something else that I wasn't able to finish, but I finally got my hands on some of the True Velocity polymer cased ammunition. I got some of the 308 match and 5.56 match and 5.56 full metal jacket. And I got to fire a box of each. Just did some chronograph work on them, and that stuff was actually pretty impressive. It's expensive as hell, but it's pretty impressive on what it does. So those are the things that we pretty much got in the pike right now.
Yeah. So next up is going to be Sunday. I have it scheduled. I think it's for 11 a.m. It's going to go up. It's on the Colt AR-15A2 government carbine. So that's going to be that's a pretty long one. I think that one clocks in at just it's 18 minutes. So.
Yeah,
the
Colt M9 one, that's going to be one you can get your bowl of popcorn, because that's probably at least a half hour. It's going to be at least a half hour. I think.
Yeah. No, that was probably 45 minutes of footage, and it will probably edit down to probably about 40 minutes because he was on it. When it comes to Colt videos, yeah.
I was there for a lot of that. When Colt did the Scar, I was doing Black Rifle too, and I remember going in there doing some stuff for Black Rifle too, and General Keys had to give me permission. And I had to sign paperwork so I could look at those prototypes of the SCAR rifles and tell them what I thought about it. So I was there for that. Then, of course, by the time I was there was when the LE6940 was pretty much finalized, and they were beginning the LE901. So I was actually there during those processes, and of course I followed through with the release of the LE901, and then following up with the individual carbine, and then right through the M5. So I had some really good inside knowledge on all those programs and how they were they were pretty much linked together. To see actually where Colt is right now. If I could get my hands on any gun right now, it would be probably a Colt individual carbine rifle. Those of you guys who have had who bought the Vickers Guide Volume 2, Revision 2, where I co-authored on Revision 2 of the Volume 2, you will see that Colt individual carbine rifle. And it was just one hell of a design.
Thoughts on the Geissele taper profile barrels?
I don't have really much experience with them yet. Geissele, for the longest time, I had great difficulty getting things from. Once Bill Geissele stepped down, the groups that I was working with at Geissele, I just couldn't get anything out of them whatsoever. In fact, when I was doing that Vickers Guide book, I wanted to get Geissele in there because of the URGI. They belonged in that history book with the work that they had done, but they wouldn't even return my phone calls. So because they didn't return my phone calls, they didn't get into probably one of the most significant history books that's ever been done on that rifle. And it wasn't until recently, I don't know how, I don't know, I tried again at some point. This time I got somebody who was a fan of the channel, and I started talking to him. He couldn't believe that they'd missed out on the opportunity to be in Vickers Guide. He says, whatever you need. So that was right after I got my the rifle that you saw, the Super Duty, the Gen 2 Super Duty. That I have to thank Brownells for providing, because I couldn't get anything from Geissele, and I had an issue with that, and I wanted to talk to him about it. This is how I got a hold of this guy, and this guy was like, "You had problems doing what?" And he said, "Anything you need." He got me that. In fact, the lower receiver I had from Desert Tech, that is all built up with Geissele parts. It's a pretty incredible rifle right now. So I am just starting to get my hands on Geissele stuff now. So we'll see where that goes. But we'll be doing more with it.
Totally Random Dude says, thanks for doing these. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Will there be a crime series for the AR-15? What is next on the playlist for that?
I never really thought about that one, but I guess I probably should. I have to tell you, in my time, I mean, again, I've been out of the game for a while. We did not see a lot of AR-15s come through the crime labs. Very rarely, and if we did see them, they were not guns that were actually used in crime. They were ones that were taken on warrants, or they were taken in homes where they had like have a cool off period. Guy and his wife got into a fight or whatever. They had to pull all their guns out of the house. That's the way that stuff was taken. We didn't really see those used in crimes. We did see SKSs, we did see AKs. We didn't really see too many of those. That's changed a little bit now, of course, with the with the more modern school shooters and everything. So I guess I could probably consider that. The next crime series I will do. In fact, I should have picked it up. You guys wanted me to do one on shotguns. My FFL, Glenn did have a couple sitting there waiting for me that I forgot to pick up.
Wonderful.
So the next time I go pick up from him, I will go pick up those shotguns, and we will do one on the shotguns.
Have you ever used a Magpul Colt Canada IURs or MMRs? If so, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I used the IURs in Denmark several years ago while working for Carl Lewis. I went over to Denmark, and the Danes bought the LMT. They bought our M203 grenade launcher, and I was sent over to do the demonstrate. We did the training, and we did the armorers training. So we did live fire, we did armorers training, we did everything, and then we went out. Those guns were mounted on IURs. So the guns we had out to the range were all the IURs. Looking at the IUR versus, say, a Colt LE90 or LE6940, I got to say probably the LE6940 I like better. It just seemed like it was a little bit more sturdily built. Obviously, I prefer the Demaco barrels better. I like the Colt Hammer Forge Chrome Line barrels better. We sort of had a little bit of a pain in the ass, and Demaco had to work with the Danes on that. Was they basically have a hook on the rear of the handguard on the IUR, to use the grade launcher that the Canadians use, where the Danes were using M203s. They couldn't get the M203s to sit back far enough where they could put their hand on the magazine to use it as a pistol grip. So they had to go and they had to, basically hack off that freaking that hook that was on the end there so they could move the 203s back. But I can't say that the IUR I felt was any better than the LE6940 series. I thought the upper receiver probably on the American made gun was probably better. Just when it comes down to the barrels, I tend to like the Damaco barrels, Colt Cannon barrels better. Bolts too. I tend to like the bolts that the Canadians use a little bit better too. The bolts that the Canada uses are not the same as the American ones. Although the Damaco did get the original TDP for the M16A4, they modified a lot to Canadianize it. That included the barrels, the bolts, the bolt carriers, the machining processes, everything. So they don't meet the US TDP any longer for the most part. However, the Damaco bolts have been used on American guns, so I guess they do meet all the testing. But for as far as their way they're manufactured, they are not manufactured the same way the ones are in Hartford. They are different. I believe they're a little bit stronger, and I believe they're probably a little bit better.
What do you think about 12.5-inch barrel 6-arc?
Doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me, being the fact that you're looking at a rifle that's for more of a long range. This is the same thing with the 6.5 Creedmoor. At SHOT Show, I met up with Carl Lewis, and he had a customer that required I think it was a 13-inch, 13.5-inch it was, short-barreled 6.5 Creedmoor. Now, if you go back to when the Creedmoors first came out, those are mostly 24-inch barrels. Then they dropped them down to 22. And now then you sort of saw them stabilize around 20. You are losing literally so much velocity and so much unburned propellant at that type of a short barrel that it's ludicrous. So sometimes you do things just because you can and not because it's a smart thing to do or it's a wise thing to do. And putting a 6.5 Creedmoor in a short barrel like that is just something you just don't do for any number of reasons, not just because you can. I mean, you can make anything work, but it's not a good idea. I think the 6 arc is probably the same way. It's probably something you're probably better off having a longer barrel. But I don't have enough experience with the arc to do some terminal ballistics with it to see what the shorter barrel will do. The 6 arc. What I would like to find out for myself is this an assault rifle cartridge or is this a more of a DMR type cartridge? That's really the key because they're two totally different things. An assault rifle versus a DMR. Assault rifle is something that's supposed to be fully automatic. It's used, at shorter range. It's close quarter battle. You're not going to destroy your barrel, within 6,000 to 8,000 rounds. Where a DMR rifle, you're doing your one shots. You're doing your slow cadence of fire. You're going to get your thousand shots on your barrel, but you're going to be one at a time. What's acceptable for that is very different from an assault rifle. So I guess I need to do more homework to see what exactly the 6 arc is.
Will you ever do a review on the HCAR rifle by Auto Ordnance?
I haven't really looked into it. I probably should look into it and see what it is. One of the rifles that I was interested in taking a look at was they have basically an AR-based rifle that now uses a motor delayed blowback system. There's some things again, that I always look at and say, why? What was the point in doing this? I have no clue why somebody would be doing this. That's one of those things, but it looks neat, just from an engineering perspective for me. Something that, again, why would you do it? I have no clue, but it just looks interesting.
Have you heard that Sweden is ditching their AK-5s for Finnish-made AR-15s?
Somebody had just mentioned that. I did not realize they were Finnish. So I guess this would be an interesting thing to find out. One of the things that people don't really realize about Colt, and one of the reasons why Colt does lose some contracts, Colt is not willing to put their production overseas. They want to make everything in that Hartford plant. So they're not ones who likes to license their guns out. So there's been some contracts where that was a deal breaker because Colt wasn't willing to do that. In fact, probably the only company that Colt does do that with was Damaco, and that was licensed back in the late 80s. I don't believe Colt has done any kind of licenses for the M4 anywhere in the world. I could be wrong, but as the time that I was there, that wasn't even on the table for something like that. So I'm curious to know what rifle that they're using and who licensed it to them or how it's being produced. That I'm just very curious about.
Is the ALG Jeffy a Mercury Sable to the Geissele Taurus?
Say it again.
Is the ALG Jeffy a Mercury Sable to the Geissele Taurus?
I'm not sure what that is, unfortunately. I'm sorry, I can't answer that one.
Have you tested the new Tango Down Gen 3 AR-15 mag?
Tango Down, no. I have not done any real updates on magazines. In fact, the first time that I had gotten any really new magazines was this new T mag. There are some magazines I've read about. I probably need to get some samples and see how they work. The T mag is going to be, you guys are going to really enjoy that video because I am probably one of the only people in existence that has the prototypes that were done in 2003 of the first translucent magazines that Magpul did. There was 2 of them, and they slipped them to me because I was working with them from day one. I was with those guys from their first year at the SHOT Show, and they sent them to me to take a look at, and they didn't release them because of the fact that they were not durable enough. So they sat stagnant from 2003 until 2024 to get those. They were perfect. They were right. They were ready to release. So you're going to get to see some of that history, which you won't see anywhere else. Short of, I think, short of anybody at Magpul, their factory direct, you're not going to see these kinds of prototype stuff.
Thanks for the response, Chris. I sent you a message a little while ago on IG about offering more info into Magpul Colt Canada information. Chris does not read DMs on IG. I run all the social medias, so the best way, if you have a question, is to contact me at hbertacci@smallarmsolutions.com. Yeah.
For you guys to know that, when you guys do read, leave comments for me, I pretty much read all of them.
He will under the videos.
Yeah.
So if you comment under videos, he will read. But as far as social medias, he doesn't even know how to really access those.
I'm not sure which ones we all got, but under the videos, I read pretty much all of them, and I do respond to as many of them as I can.
Any spare parts or springs I should have on hand for Beretta M9? I'm just curious where they need service. I assume springs.
M9, the most important spring is you want to replace your recoil spring every 5,000 to 6,000 rounds. That is the most critical one you're going to have to do. It wouldn't hurt to have a spare trigger bar spring because sometimes when people stick toothbrushes in there, they can snap that one off. I would definitely have the spare locking blocks. I would keep an eye on your locking block after you hit anywhere from 10 to 15,000 rounds. You'll start seeing some pitting on the usually the left wing of the locking block. When you start seeing that, it's time to replace that. I probably would get some spare extractor springs. Pretty much after maybe 10,000 rounds, you want to pop out your extractor and check out what kind of crap you got in there. If you have a lot of carbon that's in there, you may want to take that apart and clean it up. And you want to replace your extractor. You'll replace your extractor spring and your extractor pin. Probably your spring for your frying pin safety. I would probably have an extra decocker, not the lever, but the decocker lever that goes into your trigger mechanism. That might be something not bad idea to have. And maybe one of your when you put your slide stop on there, your slide release on there, there's a weird shaped spring that hooks in. I probably would get one of those too in case that was to break. Again, these are not parts that commonly break. I'm just saying if you want to have parts on hand. But the most critical one's going to be your recoil spring.
Have you seen the Sons of Liberty Gunworks new Mark I rifle, and what are your thoughts?
I met those guys again at SHOT Show, and they were going to send me 2 rifles. I called him repeatedly, since January to get those 2 rifles, and he had not responded. He's not responded back to me. I'm not sure if I'm going to be making SHOT Show this year or not. If I actually do go to SHOT Show this year, he's one of the guys I will track down. If I do go, that's one of the guys who's going to be in my crosshairs. And also, I want to find somebody at Hornady about getting ammunition. But yeah, those are some things that are on my list if I do get there this, next year.
Why doesn't Colt start manufacturing all the AR variant rifles they made before? They would make so much money.
Well, if you look at Colt's standpoint, these guys are designed to produce military weapons in large quantities. For them to start, manufacturing obsolete parts it's not feasible. If you look at the entire retro market, if you look at the money that goes into again making these obsolete parts, I mean, you're looking at the cost of building dies to do obsolete upper and lower receivers. You're building triangular handguards that are only going to be useful to a very small sector of the market. You're looking at barrels that are 1 in 12 that are not even practical today. They're only used for these small these small contracts. It's very, very expensive to do that. And as you look at what Colt did when they went into the retro market, they had somebody else build the gun for them and put their name on it. They did not tool up to build those guns. It's just not feasible, for them to do that. It's probably better left to these smaller boutique companies who that's what their focus is going to be on building those and going that route.
Can you do a video on the individual carbine program in the future? Are there any design holdovers from that program that we can see on rifles today?
Oh, sure. I mean, the problem with the individual carbine rifles were there was no final report because the report was because the program was canceled. All the manufacturers who, like for instance, Colt got a letter on Colt's performance. LMT got it on theirs. All the people who competed in that weapons program, they all got their own documents of what those results were. So the actual results are not really known as to what happened. The reality was the program was canceled. The reality was it was done to appease Senator Colburn. That's what it was for. The Army never had any intention of replacing the M4. It was done to appease this senator. A lot of government money was wasted, and a shit ton of money of these manufacturers were wasted who built guns to enter into that. Sort of why I really haven't gotten into it too much was because there's not enough information out there. I can't pull out pictures of guns and show you. For instance, the only reason I got pictures of the Colt individual carbine was because that was for Vickers Scott Volume 2. Colt has never shown that publicly. That was the first time that anybody got permission to see that rifle from Colt. LMT, the first time I ever saw LMT's rifle that was put in there was doing that book as well. Carl never advertised that he had done that. So these guns just don't out there. They don't exist to try to do something like that. And like I got college companies up and say, hey, send these to me so I can review them. That's just not going to happen. So it would be more of just an overview and thoughts.
There's a little bit of a conversation in here going on about how dangerous is lead exposure. And Sean is saying he had a buddy that worked in an indoor gun range and it had to be tested, but it ended up working so many hours. He had super high lead exposure and spent some days in the hospital.
Okay, I can talk about this. I was 21 years old. I was working for Laser Max. And I was doing a significant amount. I was testing up to 10 to 15,000 rounds a week, doing engineering testing on the various parts for that laser device.
Hey, nobody told me there would be a test.
Sorry, my fault.
I think we all think
so.
that.
So of course the wintertime comes in New York, and obviously in wintertime in New York you're not going to be shooting outside, so you're going in indoor ranges. So I was doing those kind of round counts in indoor ranges. I used to happen to have a friend of mine who worked at that gun club. He goes, "Do you ever get your blood tested?" Oh, what do you mean? He goes, "You shoot an awful lot. You might want to check out what your blood levels are." So, I went to the doctor and said, "Hey, I work in this. Why don't you just check it out?" And I got a call back from not only the doctor but freaking OSHA, wanting to know what I was doing that was causing that. My blood levels were up in the poisoning level. And they basically wanted to put me into a filter and filter my blood to filter all this shit out. And I sort of like said, "You're not filtering my blood. I'm not a freaking car. You're not changing my oil." So I didn't do that. So basically what work had to do was first, they cut back on my range time. I had to wear a respirator. And then we switched our ammunition from conventional ammunition to, at that time, there was a CCI clean fire round where it had a lead-free primer. And the bullet was completely encapsulated, so it was basically environmentally safe for the most part. And we ended up switching over to that, which cost us, like 5 times the amount in ammunition. It took me a good 6 months to a year before everything got back down to normal. And I never shot it in indoor ranges ever since. The problem with that lead is it gets into your bone marrow, and that's where it stays. So you never really get rid of it. So yeah, that's a problem when you're working in this industry. That's why they're OSHA, the range that I went to, OSHA was there. These guys had to spend thousands of dollars on getting a new ventilation system that has to change the air in the range so many times per minute or hour, or I forget what hour and all that goes. But yeah, those of you guys who are shooting in indoor ranges a lot, you need to be very wise of that because that is a major problem in indoor ranges. I just pretty much stopped for the most part doing indoor ranges. I would just as soon go and freeze my ass off outside and do the shooting outside than I would, subject myself to that again, even in the wintertime.
And I'm still pretty sure that his pores ooze lead just on a general basis. I've seen him go through TSA before and be positive for lead. And he's like, I haven't even shot in a while.
Well, that's
Like, why isn't it-
explosives.
Oh,
Come to
explosives.
find, I like some of my clothes I have, like my jacket, I'll wear out to the range, and it'll get gunpowder on the range. And if they decide they're going to randomly test me, all of a sudden, it throws up the alarms. I got a freaking some bomb expert over who's like 500 pounds. I got people staring at me. I've gone through, not only the X-ray, but I've gone through the metal detectors. I've gone through everything, and everything's fine. But they're going through everything because of that. It's sort of crazy. I'm not making bombs.
Yeah, so it's like this guy said, you're a walking explosive. Yeah, his pores are oozing lead and gunpowder. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I hope you have a good week, good Friday night. We appreciate you joining us. Chris.
Thank you very much. You guys have a good night.